Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And today we are visiting diet culture Instagram. So I'm going to cover a couple of Instagrams with fit with Mads training. So I've still been looking at a lot of different people, but I definitely like her so far, for sure. There's a couple takes of hers that I do like a lot, and this is one of them. So I want to show her today. So I think for once we can actually be a little bit more positive. I feel like oftentimes we're pretty critical here, and I'm just tired. I'm feeling very Lana-y. I'm feeling very like the road is long, we carry on right now. I'm tired. So let's go ahead and do this.
Keep telling me that I've changed after losing 140 pounds. Bitch, I hope so. I hope so. I spent the better part of 21 years of my life with absolutely zero self-worth, with no self-love, with no self-confidence, basically begging people to love me. I would change myself to match whoever I was with because I just wanted them to like me. With boys, with friends, I just wanted people to like me, and I didn't think I was worth being loved. That is how I spent the majority of my life. After losing 140 pounds, I discovered that I was worth something. And no, I'm not saying if you're overweight, you're not worth anything. But that's how it felt in my head. I stopped changing myself for people. I started being myself. Because I figured out, yes, I was worthy of being loved as myself. I didn't have to change myself in order to be loved by somebody. And I stopped letting people walk all over me. I started standing up for myself. I lost a lot of friends in the process. So yeah, I've changed, but I'm so freaking glad I did. And if I didn't change, frankly, I would be worried because I would be a shell of a human being. People keep telling me that
So I just want to say that I feel like there are a lot of spiritual aspects to weight loss, which I have been thinking about a lot. I think because I am in my Lana era, honestly. I know that's weird. I've kind of touched upon it a bit on here, but there's something about this current phase, I think, of being, very, very close to not being overweight at all, of not being even close to obese, but yet still being in the deficit. I feel like there is a clarity I have in this phase that I never really had, I think, honestly, ever in my entire life, if I'm going to be like real. And I feel like that amount of clarity is something that's coming from the actual weight loss. I think it's similar to a spiritual fast. And so when I heard her say this, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally understand her. I totally feel her. And she's right. And in a lot of ways, my journey is very similar to her. And I think in some ways that aspect isn't talked about enough, like how it can change you on a spiritual level to downsize, and how at times, and much of the time, in order to downsize, especially from a very big size or within the toxic ritualistic or whatever you want to call it, there comes a point where there has to be spiritual growth in order for those things to happen. And I feel like she describes this very well. So let's hear it one more time. And yeah.
I've changed after losing 140 pounds. Bitch, I hope so. I hope so.
That's the thing. I think a lot of times people try to say that as an insult, or they try to say that as a way to put you down. But a lot of times when we are changing and when we have changed, there are reasons to change. Maybe that openness was betrayed. Maybe that willingness to put up with things was taken advantage of. Maybe that people pleasing was pushed to an edge that you can never go back to it. I think a lot of times people, in some ways I have presented it as such, so I understand why people would think it, But there was a time when I was a people pleaser. It wasn't natural to me, but I still was one for quite a few years. And it was the worst my E followed by the letter D ever was. It was so spiritually incongruent, and I still struggle with it even to this day. There are times when I'm filming and I feel like I should or shouldn't say something because I want to please. It still affects me. There are times when I'm concerned about what the people closest to me think about me and all of these different things. And I worry about it. I consider these things in my mind often, even today. And I think that a lot of times in my life when I have thrown that out, it's been because I'm so exhausted with it. I'm so exhausted with that commentary in my mind, in my own mind. And for me, the toxic ritualistic was so tied to that now that it's been gone for so long, now that I have so much less of these hormonal issues and all this stuff, I can see it very clearly. And there's like a spiritual shedding of the skin. I know a lot of people don't like the word spiritual, but see, I'm wanting to disclaim, but I shouldn't have to. That's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual concept. Is that in my body? No. Is that in my heart? No. Trust me. My heart is like, ugh. Is that in my mind? No. Ugh. My mind is like, ew. I don't want to people please. But my soul is like, yes, I do. There's these different aspects to us too that I think a lot of times we don't think about. And the soul represents that interconnectedness, especially on like a large scale. And that part of me does struggle a bit with it because it's like, I do want to please. I want to please within this movement, or I want to please within my activism. I want to please within my impact. And that is something I struggle with still. But there were times where I people pleased a narcissistic best friend, for example. And it was a horrible experience. And it was some of the worst years I had in the toxic ritualistic, So I think it's important for us to understand that when we change, it's often for a reason. It's not always even because we wanted to. Sometimes we just change because we have to.
I spent the better part of 21 years of my life with absolutely zero self-worth, with no self-love, with no self-confidence, basically begging people to love me. I would change myself to match whoever I was with because
It's devastating. I've been a push-pull girly pop for a lot of my life, and there have definitely been phases where it was worse and phases where it's better. And I think when I was at my worst with the toxic ritualistic, it made that aspect of me much worse, especially romantically, which is awful. And, it has to do with the roots of my toxic ritualistic. It has to do with, the issues I honestly had with my dad and the whole experience I had with living with him and stuff. It was a horrible experience. It was traumatic. And that led to these issues of pushing and pulling, especially romantically and stuff. We're going to be real about it. And she's right. It does come from a sense of a complete lack of self-worth. And I did have that. And that goes so hand in hand with the toxic ritualistic that in a lot of cases, as it fades away, so do these negative spiritual things. I don't know how else to say it, A lot of those go away too because they're tied to it in a way. It's tied to it. So I think at this point, I'm still changing. I found so much of my resistance to change was also a part of the toxic ritualistic. And when people say this, I think that they are trying to reinforce you. And it's important to understand that. And it's also important to see it from a higher level and understand that they're doing it because of their own fear, their own insecurity. It's not necessarily personal, and it doesn't have to do with your sense of self-worth or your worthiness. If somebody's doing that to you, there's nothing wrong with you if somebody's trying to reinforce by saying this. And I think it's important to learn those lessons. And I feel like I'm reaching a point where I see that now. Post MSP, you know?
Just wanted them to like me. With boys, with friends, I just wanted people to like me, and I didn't think I was worth being loved. That is how I spent the majority of my...
I felt that way too. I did. I really did. You know, I still struggle with it to this day, especially romantically, I do.
My life. After losing 140 pounds, I discovered that I was worth something. And no, I'm not saying if you're overweight, you're not worth anything. But that's how it felt in my head. I stopped changing myself for people. I started being myself. Because...
And I think this is where I'm at this point. Like, I always have been myself, but it's been me on like a crazy hormonal roller coaster. And I've tried my best to be true to that whole journey. But for all that to be gone and to me just kind of be left with myself, it is scary and different to step forward just as me. And most of the time, there isn't some hormonal or physical reason for why I'm acting the way I do now. And that's liberating, but it's also terrifying because it's kind of like a huge amount of accountability because I'm a lot healthier than I used to be. And in a lot of cases, it's kind of like a feeling of I know better and I can do better. So I need to do better. And I feel like there is definitely an internal pressure on a lot of things, not just weight related, but in general in life. And I think that this feeling is also something I ran from within the toxic ritualistic. I worried about it being just me. You know, if I'm still weird, then I'm just weird now. You know, all I have left is like my anemia, which is not really anything. I don't think it does that much. You know, I don't sit here and blame anything on my anemia other than being tired. You know? But it's like, other than that, maybe I'm a little bit moody here or there, but it's really not that much. And it kind of blows my mind how I'm not that moody anymore. And I feel like there's just like a vacuum left in a sense. And I have to step into that spiritually, which is scary. So I have to do what she's saying. I have to just be myself and not be people pleasing and not do this stuff because I can't. I can't do that. And it's tough.
Because I figured out, yes, I was worthy of being loved as myself. I didn't have to change myself in order to be loved by somebody. And I stopped letting
Realizing it.
people walk all over me. I started standing up for myself. I lost a lot.
I didn't have an issue with that. You guys have seen that a little too many times. If anything, I need to learn to chill a little bit. But I think that's the thing. I'm starting to be able to chill. Which I'm like, me? But, you know, not to get too cringe millennial on her. I don't know if she is a millennial or not, but not to get too, I don't think so. I have a feeling she looks younger to me. I'll just put it to you that way. I feel like I you know, in more basic psychological terms, we could talk about this in terms of like anxious attachment versus avoidant. And I am a more avoidant girly, to be honest. So some of it does register differently, but it still can come from a sense of a lack of self-worth, which again, it goes in all too well with the toxic ritualistic. They can be very, very linked. It can be a soul tie. No, I'm just kidding. But no, they can be very, very linked. Okay? That's very important. And EFA by letter D can definitely exacerbate insecure attachment.
A lot of friends in the process. So yeah, I've changed, but I'm so freaking glad I did. And if I didn't change, frankly, I would be worried because I would be a shell of a human being. People keep telling me.
Yeah. I am currently a shell of a human being. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm fine. I'm still stepping into that and finding myself without the moodiness, which is like, it's such a stillness. It's not perfect. Like I still have emotion and I'm still reactive and whatever, but I think I always will be. But reactive isn't always bad. Like reactive can also be like somebody does something and I'm really happy or I'm like really overjoyed. You know what I mean? Like some of that is just who I am, but the kind of moodiness for no reason, it's less and less and less as each day goes by. And some of it I think is a mental discipline, a spiritual practice. You know, I have been meditating a lot more and stuff like that. Like I do a lot of grounding work. Like I'm a very like, you know, too up in the air girly pop. So I try to be a lot more grounded often. And I think it's really helping me feel more balanced to do that grounding work. So it's interesting. I think it's something I never thought about much up until this point, but I think it has to do with that aspect of it. You know, it's easier to do deep work. And even if you want to take a more, you know, concrete approach to what I'm saying, there's a lot of, I feel like deep psychological work is more available in this phase. It's like high level and extremely deep. And I have been enjoying it. And I felt fruits of it quickly. So take advantage of that in a vanity weight era. You know, take advantage of that aspect. Because I always have felt like it is a sacrifice at this point because it's not technically required. So if we're going to get physical benefits, we may as well get mental or spiritual benefits as well. So it's interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cover one more of hers, and then we'll call it a video. The next one will be a little bit more grounded, I think. So I like videos that push us towards more realism. So this one says, imagine thinking every woman over 130 is fat. So let's go ahead and listen.
Oh my God, you need to stop calling yourself skinny. If you're 170 pounds, you are overweight. You cannot call yourself skinny. You literally shut up. People have this idea that if you are over a certain number, you are not lean, you are not skinny. But here's the thing that nobody understands. Body composition. Your body can look drastically different at the same weight depending on how much muscle mass you have. When I first lost the weight at 170 pounds, I look drastically different than I do currently at 170 pounds. And I will throw a picture here of what I currently look like at 175 pounds. And I will look drastically different than the next person at 175 pounds. Also, how tall you are also plays a crucial role in this. I'm like 5'8". 175 pounds on me with a lot of muscle mass is going to look drastically different than 175 pounds on a girl that's 5'1" and has no muscle mass. The number on the scale means absolutely freaking nothing. And we are so tied to the number on the scale as being the end all be all to track your progress and everything, and just like let the number on the scale dictate everything about your life, when truly that number literally doesn't mean shit. Oh my God, you need to...
So I appreciate this. I appreciate the sentiment. I think that once you get to a certain point, the number on the scale doesn't matter as much. That's true. I still have certain weight goals that I'd like to be at. But I'm still not quite there to where it doesn't matter anymore. But certainly once I'm under 200, for me at my height at 6'1", being under 200, there's a lot of stuff I could be at, a lot of different weights. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the number will matter nearly as much. And I appreciate this because I think people get so caught up on numbers, and some people want to be like very, very strict with the number on the scale and all this stuff. And I think it's really important to, again, be more grounded in what the number actually means, especially within a vanity weight era where things can get kind of blurry, or they can go too far, or they can get muddy. You have to be very clear with your intentions. And for me, my intentions are to be athletic, maybe the lowest level of athlete you can be, but I would like to be at least low level athletic, and I'm willing to do the work to get there, even though it's tough. But I know in my mind what that looks like. And I know just around where it is numbers wise, it's my overall goal has always been to get to 17% body fat. And from there, I will reassess what I want to do. But ultimately, it's all, create your own adventure at this stage. And right now, I'm really focusing more on spirituality. And I think that's where more of the work needs to be done and can be done as I continue to downsize in this stage. And we'll see where we get, especially towards next year and stuff. But I really appreciated her messaging there with this specific topic, because I think we have to stay rooted in reality. And I think it can be a little challenging because, again, I think there's a lot of mental work, deep psychological things, spiritual work that can be done in this era or in this phase. And we have to remember to still stay somewhat on the ground. So I appreciate messages like this because it helps us stay grounded. And I have to constantly try to stay grounded personally in this phase. But I'm already an ethereal girly pop. So this phase is making me like practically fly to outer space, So yeah, oh gosh, it's still so short. I guess we can do more. We can do more. Sorry, I keep feeling like I'm like I'm not trying to be avoidant. Okay, 1 second. Let's do more. Okay, so let's just continue. I don't know why I keep saying things like I'm weird. So we're just gonna... I'm going through an internal spiritual battle, and I'm just kidding. Kidding, but not. I am not kidding, but I am kidding in regard to this video. Let's go ahead and watch this guy too. I just found a couple of his tonight as I was scrolling through, honestly, doom scrolling through a lot of diet culture. I have to like really separate things out, and I have to like really curate what I'm going to react to and stuff. So I'm still working on it, but we'll be back with the flower crown. But I liked a couple of his takes. So this one's big. This one's big. I do appreciate, I think these are probably Gen Zs. So there are some reasonable ones out there. We're going to start strong. So let's go ahead and listen to him.
I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer it honestly. And you might not know the answer to this question, so I want you to ponder it. I want you to deeply think. Do you want abs? No. Not saying because you want to get lean or you want to lose weight. Do you want abs? You want to get to a lean body fat percentage, even if your genetics go against it and it doesn't make you feel good. You want to be less healthy, have less energy, not be able to eat as much food, and just not enjoy life. I'm not saying that's for everybody. I'm not saying that at all. Do not get my words twisted. Personally, if I were to get down to 10%, 11% where I would see my abs, there's just no point. I would not be healthy. And I truly sat down and I asked myself, do I want that? Are the abs worth it for me? So yes, I can get abs. I can go down and get super lean, but it truly isn't worth it for me. And I had to sit down and understand that I was trying to chase abs for other people's approval, for what I thought was right, not what I truly wanted. So ask yourself, and maybe the answer is yes. Maybe abs are your main driving goal. It can make your life a lot better. Go ahead, go for it. But some of you might be in my similar shoes. I'm going to ask you a question.
So I appreciate this question as well, because I was talking about this, had a little bit of a spat with the Gen Z. I didn't read the last comment she wrote though, and I don't plan on it. I had already said what I was going to say, but what I will say is, I worry sometimes with Gen Z. Like, again, I'm showing some good ones, so it's not all, hashtag not all, but I worry about a lack of realism around fitness goals, and certainly a lack of realism around societal fitness goals. I do not think it's fair to expect everybody to have abs, for example. And there are Gen Zs that have that attitude. I don't think it's fair to expect every single person to be skinny. I don't think it's fair to expect every single person to look roided up. I don't think that those expectations are fair, and I don't think that an overemphasis on vanity in society is necessarily positive. So I like this question that he's asking himself, and I like the question in general, because when you are in a vanity weight era, you need to think about yourself very, very individuated. This is your journey. You are choosing your adventure. What is your goal and why? If you have reasons to have abs, like a job, or, like let's say you want to be a model, then you want to have abs. I think that's perfectly fine. As long as you're doing it healthy, you have a reason, you have a purpose. So it will be worth it to you. If you are let's just be real, if you are incredibly vain as a person and you want to have abs because you're very vain, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you're not being unhealthy. But if you don't care and you don't have a purpose, you really need to question it. And I do think that when we get to the vanity weight era, there are going to be certain genetic predispositions, certain genetic shifts, especially when we're looking at very, very tiny margins, at thin margins between people. For example, like calf size, for example, I keep seeing that that's largely genetic. Maybe the ease at which you could have abs is more genetic, right? These things are true. The ease of gaining muscle could be genetic. When we get to this level, we have to look at what is it available to us for the amount of effort that we're willing to give. And I think that these are important questions to ask yourself. You need to do internal reflection on this stuff. What is your goal? And why is that your goal? And please, for the love of God, please do not project your personal athleticism, vanity, weight goals onto all of society. It doesn't belong there. There's nothing wrong with being inspirational. There's nothing wrong with being aspirational. There's nothing wrong with any of that. What's wrong is to have the expectation and to point fingers at others and judge and shame because they don't have abs. That's wrong. And I do see it occasionally. So I will show it. Like I said, I have to curate and I'm trying to organize everything, but I don't like that kind of thing. And I don't want to hear somebody say that, again, it's a lot in the male space. I'm going to be honest. And it needs to be talked about because, honestly, a lot of people listen to male fitness people. You know, a lot of women do as well. It's common. So we're going to cover it. You know, we're going to need to cover it. And I saw this one guy. He was probably around 17% body fat. And he said that he was clearly overweight. And he wasn't. And I don't want us to be muddying those words because of our personal standard. You see, there's nothing wrong with having a standard, but keep what's personal, personal, and keep what's societal, societal. I hope that that's clear. I really do. I think that's going to be a tough one for some Gen Zs to handle. I think for people who are, honestly, you know, my age and older, I think you guys get it. But I think that that can be tricky, and just be careful with that. You know, I think it's common. I think it's common to feel insecure. I think a lot of Gen Zs feel shamed for wanting to pursue certain vanity goals or wanting to be athletic or whatever. And you shouldn't ever feel shamed for that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a beautiful goal to have. It's just not always practical for everybody. And it's not fair to expect it of everybody. I hope that's clear. I will probably say that many, many times throughout this era. Okay, let's do one more. Okay. This one, we're going to get some toxic ritualistic stuff, but I like what he had to say here.
If you truly want to stop binging forever, you need to listen to this video. This is all you're ever going to need. This is exactly what I did to stop binging after 5 months straight, literally constantly, and I gained 50 pounds of fat because of it. I'm going to warn you, it's going to sound arbitrary, it's going to sound stupid, but I want you, and I'm going to tell you to do it and see what happens. It all comes down to your mindset around food, your mindset around everything that you eat. Negatively impacts your entire life. Ask yourself legitimately, when you binge eat, what do you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself, I'm a binge eater, I'm cooked, there's nothing I can do, it's an eating disorder, I was born this way? Yes, that's what I told myself, that's what you probably told yourself, but the issue is, when you tell yourself these things, you're gonna subconsciously believe it. When your brain fully believes something, the urge arises, it's going to resort back to that. Realize, wait, I don't have a choice, why even fight back? Leading to you binge eating. So what do you have to do to actually fix that? You need to tell yourself the things that you want. Manifest things that you want in life. Tell yourself, I'm not a binge eater. Make sure that your brain fully understands that you have the conscious decision to eat food. Never accidentally eat food. And when your brain fully understands that, it has less logic to grasp onto trying to justify binge eating urges, because you can tell yourself, okay, I can make this decision. Why would I truthfully go against what I want when I have that choice? If you are done binge eating, check the link in my bio. If you truly want...
Yeah, so I love this because this has a lot to do with identity. And it's so real. It's so true. What he said is totally true. You have to, like, how you eat. I don't want to play it again just because I feel like YouTube's going to get pissed. But what you eat, how you act around it, it's all narratives. The toxic ritualistic is something that is constantly repeated and reinforced to yourself. And you have to stop. You have to stop. It is part of why I do not agree with I'm a food addict. You are labeling yourself. You are locking yourself into that when there is not a physical addiction. It's not real. And it's very difficult for people to understand that they are very attached to it, but it's because you are identifying with your E followed by the letter D. You're identifying with it. Oh, I don't agree with certain foods, or I can't eat these certain things. They make me hungrier. Well, then why are you eating them in the first place? Are you not in control of it? You are. It's accountability. I believe people if they're like, I get really hungry when I eat sugar. I can't really handle sugar. I get so hungry and I just want to eat all the time. Okay, then you don't need to eat it. You're still choosing to do it. It's a self-sabotage. And I think a lot of times people have come at me and they're like, you don't understand. You don't. I have been super morbidly obese. I was super morbidly obese from 2009 to 2024. Or no, 2010. Sorry, I was off by 1 year. I know it. I know all the excuses in the book. I used to identify as a food addict. I have journal entries saying it. I was never further from getting out of the problem when I believed that. Because you're identifying with it. It's a narrative. It's something you tell yourself every day. It's something you tell yourself. Because it comforts you. It makes you feel like, well, I'm out of control. I can't control it. You can. And then they'll say it. Well, I can't control myself around food. Yes, you can. It's a lie. When you go to the grocery store, are you just eating everything in there? You see it and you eat it? No. And I understand a lot of people can't stand on business. A lot of people can't say, I was super morbidly obese for 14 years. But I can say it. I believed it was genetic. I believed it was impossible. I believed I was addicted. I would get into these cycles of, I have to deny myself this, and then now I'm going to indulge in it, then I'm going to deny it, then I'm going to indulge in it, then I'm going to deny it. This is all a part of it. It is a form of self-hatred. You're doing it to cause yourself pain because you don't love yourself. That's what it is. In plain terms. That's why you see these types of topics come up a lot for people who know what they're talking about. Self-love is not, it's not narcissism, it's not selfish, it's reasonable, it's practical. Self-love is about being at peace with yourself. If we can't be at peace with ourselves, how can we be at peace with other people? And if you are not, you don't have peace with yourself, which is why you're in this problem. And I know that that's a very esoteric topic, but I'm just going to say it because it's the truth. Anyways, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, night, etc. I will see you guys later. Bye.